Hello, welcome to Become the Writer live training. I'm Molly Ovenden. I'm so excited that you are here with me today. I am, I'm excited. I'm always excited, you guys, talking about writing. So I'm here to give us some ideas to think through 3 ways to engage your readers. So one of the things that we do as writers and then moving into being authors is we write stuff and then we don't tell people about it. We just expect that it's good, so people should find our writing. People should know that it's good, and then they should just engage with it. They should read it, they should buy our books, they should read our blogs, they should sign up for our email list, all of these things that we know that what we're writing is good. And so the problem lies here with not telling people about it. So part of that can happen where we feel like maybe our writing isn't good enough, and so we can have some doubts about whether we are capable of actually writing and producing reader-worthy materials. But we can also have fears of how we'll be perceived. So we could be afraid of what people will think of us if we do a really good job. We could be afraid of what people think of us if we fail and totally drop the ball and we don't produce this beautiful writing that we hope for. And so if you are feeling fear, or if you're feeling doubt about what you're capable of doing, this can stunt our growth as writers, but it can also stop our engagement with our readers. So if you are a reader and you're here watching live, or if you're watching the replay, do a hashtag replay, of course, and type in the comments, I am a reader. And so I want you to consider yourself as a reader. When we think about how do we as writers, as authors, engage our readers, think about yourself as a reader. So, I am a reader. Awesome. So there are 3 main ways that we can engage our readers. And one of them is to think about our own author origin story. So where did you come from? What's your history as a writer? What's your history as a reader? And bring that piece into how you share about your own work and what you're writing. And when we look at ourselves as readers who devour other writers' work and other authors' books, what is it that compels us to engage with them? Awesome. I am a reader. Yes, I am a reader, and it's a beautiful thing when we produce something that we will also enjoy ourselves. And so when we can relate to our readers who devour our words by showing up as a reader ourselves, that's going to help us connect with our future readers, our current readers, and be able to really engage them. And so when you think about sharing your author origin story, consider these questions. How have you been sharing about your past books? If you do have books, how have you been sharing them if they're published already? Or what have you been sharing about your writing life and your work in general? Do you share with people about what you're writing? And if you do share, what's worked? When you have shared what you've written, what allowed your readers the opportunity to engage with it, and what didn't work? And then if you haven't been sharing, why haven't you been sharing about your past work? And there are so many things that we can share when we are authors, when we're writers. We can share our own experience and our own growth, and this is really a fun way where readers feel that proximity and we get to know the authors, and that's really fun. Another thing that we can share about our origin story, our author origin story, is what are your earliest reading memories? What are the books that you read? So if you're watching this live or in the replay, go ahead and put in the comments what your favorite book is. What is your favorite book? Type that in the comments. So when we share part of our author origin story by sharing our favorite books, the books that we remember in our earliest reading memories, we're able to bring part of ourselves that creates a relationship with our readers, and that relationship will create engagement. So I remember being read to from picture books. I remember the Pokey Little Puppy, I think is a golden book, but that was one of my favorites. It's about this puppy who is on a walk with her other puppy siblings, and she gets chasing a butterfly or smelling a flower or something and gets left behind. And so I really related to that as a child because I always got distracted. And I really loved that book because, well, my mom called me Pokey Little Puppy. And when I read that book, I remember really staying in it and being in those moments, enjoying like the world of the wildflowers and butterflies with the Pokey Little Puppy. And I remember reading times in elementary school when we had silent reading times. It was deer times, they were called. Drop everything and read. And I loved that. We had baskets in the middle of the table. Sometimes if we were good in class, we could sit underneath the tables. And that was really fun. Some of those early reading memories are really cool. So being able to share your origin story in relation to how you are a reader, that really helps create connection between you as the author and your readers. And then in that same way, stemming from your earliest memories, who are your author heroes? Who are your favorite authors? Whose books have you, since a child or all in your adulthood, who have you gone back to over and over? And what do you love about their writing? When you share your own work alongside books that are by authors you are inspired by, that's going to create another bond, another connection that happens between you and your readers, because they'll want to read books that you like as well while they're waiting for your next book to come out. And then it also shows some of your personality, and it shows that you are more than just an author, that you're more than just the name on the cover. And then you can also be sharing about the first stories that you've written and where your love of the genre that you write in has come from. And so I remember going on walks with my mom, and we would play spelling games on walks. We would come up with words to spell for each other, and I always tried to trip up my mom with as big of words as I could think of. But then we would often come home and write stories either using those words that we came up with in spelling games, or we would write the stories about something that we experienced in that time, or just allowed those walks to engage our imagination. Now, isn't that cool? Like, that's just some piece of my, whatever, but that's neat. Like, it's a really cool part of my author history. Like, as a little kid, I played nerdy spelling games with my mom, and it was brilliant, and then we wrote stories together. And in terms of the genre that you write in, where did that come from? Does that come from your early reading memories? Does it come from your author heroes? Why do you like fantasy or science fiction? Or Why do you write in realistic fiction? So for me, I love the idea of watching characters live their lives alongside other characters, like in an apartment building, and you don't know as the character the depth of feeling that your neighbor is experiencing. And so it's just like, these images passing by, but then as the author we get to get into the heads of each of these characters, and I think that's just fascinating that we can live such deep lives alongside of each other and different characters. That's great. Awesome. You're reading a lot of books, Jessica. That's great. Brilliant. I love reading. Then think back to your origin story with who taught you. So when you consider your author origin story, who are the teachers in your life, whether they were language arts or English teachers or writing teachers or literature teachers? Maybe you had some others who really inspired you in your creative pursuits and your writing pursuits. I certainly had one of my band directors that invested really heavily in me and just gave me a lot of time, not just for my music, but also in just in who I am, like really empowered me and asked me lots of questions to help me discover who I wanted to be and who I was. And so even in me sharing this with you, there's a connection, right? So there's more of an interest by me having a conversation with you about where I've come from as an author. It's interesting. We're getting to know. It's not just about, here's the book I wrote by it. That's not what it's about. But it's about that relationship for a lifetime between author and reader. And that's how we engage our readers. And the second way that we can engage our readers is, so first is share your author origin story, but then the second way is to share your work in progress. This can feel really vulnerable. And sometimes we don't want to share the imperfection that is happening on the page. And I totally get that, but that is a way that we can engage with our readers. And by sharing what you're working on, it's a little behind the curtains, behind the scenes way to be more than just a book, but it can be that collaborative approach as well when you share what you're working on and you begin to get that engagement. So one of the things that I have recently been doing is, so I'm working and I'm in the final production phase of a book that's coming out, and so I've been finishing cover design and so on with that book, and I asked for feedback. I just went on Instagram and Facebook and I just said, here's some cover ideas, here's kind of along the lines of what I'm looking for, and this is a work in progress of the development of the production phase of my book. What do you think? And so that piece of sharing created a lot of engagement, and from that I'm able to find people who are interested in what I'm working on. They're interested in reading what I'm writing, and that's a way that a connection, an engagement can happen with readers. Now I also have a very early stages rough draft book that I'm working on too, that I have shared various stages of the process of this book and what I've written on certain days or where I have been writing, and that too, when I've shared, has also, even though it's in process, even though I'm not necessarily saying exactly what I'm writing about, but showing like, hey, I'm writing today, that work in progress actually is another way to engage readers, because finishing a book, getting it to publication and completion is fascinating for those who've never done it before. And even for those of us who have published things in the past, it still is fascinating because everybody's method is different. So when we share your work in progress, you can engage your readers. And then finally, the third piece of engaging your readers is to ask your readers for their thoughts in a comment or a direct message or in an email. When we ask people to comment on something, it's helpful to create a direct call to action to, for real, ask them, what do you think about this? Or comment with yes if you want to be part of my launch team, or what stands out the most to you about this title, or what are your ideas? Being able to ask your readers for their thoughts. And even if you have an email list that you have an audience of readers that you're already engaging with through emails, ask them to reply with a specific answer to a specific question, and inviting your readers to actually engage, not just put a like, thumbs up, not just open the email, not just scroll past, but actually call your readers to action and ask them for their thoughts is a way to engage your readers. It turns them from a passive scrolling or a passive skimming into an interaction, a relationship between you as the author and your readers. So there are so many ways that we can engage our readers, but at the end of the day, if we don't create engagement, if we aren't intentional about it, we just won't have readers who devour our work, and we won't be able to make authoring part of our career that's successful. And so when we share part of ourselves beyond, here's a book, read it, buy it, when we share beyond that, we create an opportunity for prolonged, lifelong engagement between reader and author. And without that, we can't sell books, and it makes it harder to write books when we don't think anybody's reading them. So share behind the scenes, share your author origin story, share your works in progress, and then ask your readers for their thoughts in a comment or a direct message or email. What do you think? Ask them. Hello, Ed. Thanks so much for joining today. I'm glad that you're here. Thanks, Jessica, for being here. I'm glad this was helpful for you guys today. And if you're watching in the replay again, let me know what stood out to you. What's the most helpful piece that you're going to implement this week? Will you share your origin story on social media? Will you share your work in progress? Or will you ask your readers for their comments in a specific way in your next post? Let me know in the comments here, what of those three will you be working on? And I look forward to seeing how this goes for you. Again, thank you so much for joining today's live training, 3 ways to engage your readers. You can totally do it. You can allow readers into your writing life, into your author life, and you can grow a following of readers who devour your words, and it's cool. I'm excited for you. So I'm Molly Ovenden. Thanks again for joining in. Until next time, happy writing.